Now, it's 60 minutes of soccer. The Sporting JAX Soccer Hour. Here are your hosts, Cole Pepper, Mauricio Ruiz, and Becky Burleigh.
We welcome you into the Sporting JAX Soccer Hour, and we promise to do better than last week, rather.
Definitely better than last year.
Definitely better than last year when we weren't doing a show. Boy, do we have some stories to talk about. You and I were talking about this earlier. We were going through our TV show that airs on First Coast News, ABC 25, Wednesdays at noon, and then Saturdays at noon. You'll start looking at this summer, and there is so much in the world of soccer to talk about. Coming up here, we're going to talk about the U.S. men's national team and an abysmal performance against Colombia. You're going to be in Orlando on Wednesday to watch USA against Brazil.
That's right.
Let's see how that all plays out.
I'll bring both jerseys.
Yeah, I know which one you're going to be wearing. Then we'll also be talking about what's happening in the U.S. national team, the U.S. women's national team. Totally different story. I mean, great thoughts and expectations now after a couple of friendlies with Emma Hayes at the helm. We also need to get into talking about the USL Championship. And this is the men's league in which Sporting JAX will be playing, second division of professional soccer in the United States. And we want to give you a little bit of a flavor and a feel for which teams are doing well this year, which teams have traditionally been very strong in this league, and maybe an idea about what some of the rivals will be for Sporting JAX once Sporting JAX begins play. So we'll talk about all of that coming up. Becky Burleigh is going to join us here in just a bit. She'll break down what's happening with the women's national team, but also want to get her perspective, as I will you, Mauricio, as a former coach, about some comments made by Greg Berhalter after the 5-1 loss to Colombia by the United States. But let's let you know what's cooking with Sporting JAX right now. We have watch parties lined up for Copa America, which is the next big tournament for the U.S. men's national team that begins June the 23rd. They'll take on Bolivia. Then June the 27th against Panama. July the 1st against Uruguay. All three matches will be showcased as part of our watch parties at Grace Note Brewing under the Roosevelt Bridge between Ortega and Avondale. Good news, it's free to attend. Even better news, if you are a Sporting JAX season ticket depositor, if you put deposits down on your season tickets, you will get buy one, get one free beers.
Good deal.
That's a great deal. Buy one, drink one beers is a great deal at Grace Note, too. The beers are terrific. Jeremy and his group do a great job over there. So if you do want to join us, it is free, but please RSVP at sportingjax.com. And love to see you out there for those watch parties at Grace Note. All right, let's get into this, Mauricio. We're going to start with the USL Championship, kind of what's going on around the league. One of the big things that has happened with USL Championship is this huge opportunity in terms of a national TV deal. Previously, the USL Championship had been broadcast mostly on ESPN Plus with a few ESPN2 games. Those ESPN2 games have grown in numbers, as have the games on CBS Sports Network and CBS proper. Coming up next national broadcast is Pittsburgh Riverhounds against Louisville City, coming up on June the 19th, a week from Wednesday. And then the following Saturday is a doubleheader, which includes Monterey Bay against the Oakland Roots as the early game that's going to be on ESPN2. So a great opportunity here coming up to watch the USL Championship for those who are soccer fans and maybe don't want to go behind a paywall to try to see MLS or whatever else. This is a great opportunity to see a very high level of soccer being played in this country.
It is, and I think the more people they get an opportunity to see it, and as you said, there's so many different streams now and so many different platforms they can actually watch the game. A lot of it goes into the growth and the vision of the league and the teams that are buying into it. If you think about the reason why there are more games that are being streamed, the quality of the facilities and the quality of the technology in those facilities have to be upgraded, right? And so 2, 3, 4 years ago, maybe you couldn't get the same level of quality that could be displayed to a national audience besides their select few regional and local audience. Now the league is comfortable that the facilities are up to par. You look at some stadiums like Louisville, I mean, unbelievable, right? You look at Indy 11, and there's so many others around the country even Tampa Bay, some of these older baseball stadiums that have been fully converted into soccer stadiums, they have upgraded a lot of the things I'm talking about, the infrastructure, to make sure that these games, not just from a fan experience there, but from a watcher, for a fan watching experience, it's something that the league has really made a point that new franchises such as ourselves, we're not grandfathered into bad facilities, right? Some of the teams that have been in the league have standards they need to move up to, but new teams coming in, you have new standards. If you want to come into the league, your standards of quality of facilities and fan experience have been there, which is really what the plan is for us here at Sporting JAX, is to bring not just soccer at a high level, but also bring a fan experience at a high level, at a top-level facility.
Well, one of the things, if you watch soccer and how it's broadcast, and we'll leave the attending games for another conversation, but if you watch games being broadcast, it's pretty dramatic in terms of the difference between the games that are shown that really capture the intensity and the excitement of what's happening in the stadium. Premier League broadcasts on NBC do a great job of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think the U.S. men's national team and women's national team broadcasts do a great job of that as well. Part of that is facilities. Part of that is how many cameras you're putting into the broadcast and how much you're going to get in there and kind of give the opportunity to see what's happening based on camera placements and what you're doing. I just saw something today for the Euro, the UEFA Euro 2024. This is a standard camera configuration for all matches. 46 cameras that they're putting around
For every single match.
for these matches.
Wow.
8 super slow-mo triple speed cameras, 2 high-speed cameras, an aerial camera system, a wire cam, something like that, or drone cam, depending on what's allowed in the areas. 8 handheld cameras around the stadium. I mean, it is impressive, and I can just, you haven't seen this.
I have. My question is, how many of these cameras are allotted for VAR?
Right. Well, that's
VAR is still going to have one camera on a bad angle trying to call an offside.
Yeah.
That's going to be the interesting part of it, right?
but again, beyond, and that's, I would expect you from the technical director side, coaching side, to think about that. I'm thinking about showcasing the excitement in the stadium. That's going to be unbelievable what they can capture. I'm certain part of this as well is trying to capture the things that some of it may not make the broadcast, but it will make a post-game melt that will be used for promotional or social media afterwards or build up, whatever. When you have that many cameras doing that, I mean, you can capture so many things. There's no doubt about it. But beyond the U.S. men's and women's national teams, even and the Premier League, even watching some La Liga matches or watching some Bundesliga matches, some of those don't necessarily give you that same kind of feeling, even though there's a lot of intensity in the stadium for those things. So it's not just about having a great atmosphere in the stadium. It's about being able to showcase that to people who are watching soccer. And that's been a real push in the USL Championship in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I mentioned, coming into this environment now as a new team, trying to come into a new facility and building your facility from scratch, that's as relevant of a conversation as anything else within stadium and safety and ADA regulations. Where will your cameras be positioned? Are you considering that from day one? What does your Wi-Fi look like? What do your cables look like? Because the league has to position itself, every league, not just the USL Championship, but Super League as well, that's launching in the fall on the women's side. They have to position themselves on the digital platform because that's really how people are consuming, games and matches and entertainment now. And to your point, if you flip through your channels or your options and you see a game of less excitement because the production is in there versus a game of more excitement that at least looks really well produced. And mind you, on the camera side, there still might be some empty seats, but the camera angles are looking into a full stand, and that matters.
Yeah, and also just being able to showcase where you have the really engaged, emotionally invested supporters, that sort of thing. I mean, again,
that's really half the battle on a soccer entertainment standpoint. It's kind of where the fans are, right?
Yes, and making sure that they feel engaged as part of that as well. All right, we'll talk more about that and sort of the staging of the bigger things as the kickoff for the USL Super League approaches and the USL Championship for Sporting JAX. But we did want to talk more about what's happening on the pitch right now around these two leagues, in particular with the men, because they're playing right now. The women will kick off in August. But let's, Mauricio, give listeners a little bit of an idea about who the clubs are that need to be reckoned with. And we'll start in the Eastern Conference. And it's fitting that at the top of the standings right now is Louisville City. They are one of the class organizations in this league, not just because they have more points, 10 wins, 1 loss, 2 ties so far this year out of 13 matches, 32 points, which leads the USL Championship. They've won 3 straight. They're unbeaten in their last 5, and they always are there in the playoffs and go deep in the playoffs and have a great stadium and have great support from the community. This is really sort of the template club in the USL Championship.
Yeah, they're the template, they're the model, but they're also the benchmark. Because, like you said, they've been there in every single one of those elements, not just on the business side of it, on the technical side, stadium location. And they're in a city, they're in Louisville, right? Louisville has the Kentucky Derby. It's got the college team. I think Jacksonville has capacity to match and even, go above and beyond based on our culture and based on kind of where we're located. But Louisville certainly has been. They've done a great job there with how they've built a program from ownership to the technical side to the business. It all aligns. And it feels like a very aligned organization in general. And they've been best in class, certainly in the last 4 to 5 years.
And by the way, Louisville is media market number 49. Jacksonville is, I think, 42, last I checked. As you mentioned, there is not, you don't have an NFL team there in Louisville or an NBA team. The Kentucky Derby obviously is a huge thing, and the horse industry is big there. It's obviously a great college basketball town. But it's going to be interesting to see if Jacksonville can match Louisville as far as that's concerned as we build forward. Maybe I would say the one of the 2 strongest potentials for a rivalry, geographic rivalry for Jacksonville, will be Charleston Battery, who's in second place in the Eastern Conference right now. They were in first for a bit, 8-1-5. They had their first loss 3 games ago, then have drawn their last 2, but still in second place, 29 points. 3 points shy of Louisville City, although Lou City has a game in hand, but it's the second most points in the league right now, and a team with excellent history, that has gone back a long way. Now they have their own park that they're playing. They've actually had their second. The first one was, Blackbaud Stadium. Now they've gone to Patriots Point, and they have a great tradition, including last year going to the championship and almost winning the title.
Yeah, and that's it. I think it's when you think about Charleston Battery, it is tradition that they have. They're one of their kind of original, second-tier teams that have done extremely well over the time. They did have a bit of an issue at one point about 7 years ago with changing of facilities, changing ownership, and now they're back on the climb. They have loyal supporters there, and they've done really well. They won the East last year. As you mentioned, Charleston Battery. Charleston's about 3.5 hours away from here, a really lovely town to go and visit. So encouraging fans will be able to travel to Charleston, make it a day trip. And right now, they won the East last year. They're into the final. They're one of the best teams in the league, and they've been consistent the last couple of years. And then, from a Florida standpoint, Rowdies have been there as well. I will put Rowdies up with Louisville as far as consistency. They haven't necessarily kind of tipped over into that overwhelming championship that Louisville has been able to carry that brand. But Rowdies, they've been in 4 to 5 finals the last 6-7 years, and they've been steady, and it's been a really good. And even in the changeover of coaches, they've been able to stay on top. And every time you look at the standings, they're always in the top 5.
Yeah, and the other one I would just point out for right now, Indy 11, 5 straight wins. That is an interesting city to follow. There are MLS overtures being made there. There's a lot of political machinations going on right now with will they or won't they build a new stadium for Indy 11 as a USL Championships team. We'll see how it all plays out. But those are some of the top teams in the East we want to mention. A couple in the West to bring up as well. Certainly, when you talk about the teams out West, Sacramento Republic is as strong as any club. They have a great foundation, the great fan support, and they play very well each and every year. They're second place in the West right now, a point behind New Mexico United, which has been one of the hottest teams in the West. But Again, as Louisville is sort of the standard in the East, I think Sacramento, we could say, is the standard in the West.
Absolutely, and they do things a little bit differently. Louisville has an entire youth academy that they build players from within. They've had success having local youth players in Louisville developing, playing for the first team, and being sold to Europe, and have done really well. Sacramento is a little bit different. They focus just on the top pro team and a couple academy teams underneath. So their game plan is slightly different because they have a huge focus on that top level, game. And as you mentioned, they've been not only successful in league, but they're probably in recent form the most successful USL Open Cup team that have been able to battle with MLS clubs, making it to the final only 3 years ago to lose to Orlando City.
The defending champs are Phoenix Rising. They're in fourth right now in the West, 19 points from 14 matches. New Mexico United on top, by the way, with 25 points, and they've played 12. That's tied for the fewest matches played so far this year in the Western Conference. So look out for New Mexico United. They've won 4 of their last 5. As we continue with the show, week after week, we'll bring you more about what's happening in the USL, so you have a little bit of a flavor of what's going on with that league. But we also want to make sure we're paying attention to what's happening here with regards to the U.S. men's national team and the women's national team. The men's team is preparing for Copa America, but a 5-1 loss to Colombia on Saturday was an ugly, ugly affair, particularly, say, the last 20, 25 minutes of the game. How concerned are you about where the U.S. is right now on the men's side, with Greg Berhalter continuing his sort of second tour after taking the men's side out of the group stage and then losing in their first knockout round game in the World Cup last time out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a concern based on expectations. I think this team has positioned themselves into an expectation that might be slightly unrealistic still. We have players, young players playing in top leagues, but none of them are really high performers in those teams, within those teams, aside a few here and there. I mean, Tyler Adams, probably your best one, but didn't play this year. It's a hamstring, long hamstring injury. He didn't play that day. He makes a huge difference, and not to say that other top players in other nations don't make a huge difference. When Croatia plays without Modric, they're different. Right? And you can say that when Argentina plays without Messi, they're different. Certainly, Tyler Adams, I would say, is the heartbeat of our team, and when he doesn't play, we feel a difference. And that's what I felt in that Colombian game. It's a bit of I don't know if this is too harsh, a heartless display and a heartless performance. A team that was trying to warm up to the World Cup, to Copa America, where Colombia felt like they were at home. It was a huge Colombian crowd, and they honored their traveling or resident, U.S. resident Colombian fans. And Colombia has been on fire in the South American qualifiers. And they came into the game with the hope that they can win Copa America. That's a big deal for South American countries. Yeah. And U.S., they treat it as a bit of a walk, as a warm-up, and you look like it with the end result.
Let's hear some comments from Greg Berhalter, the head coach of the U.S. men's national team. Here is his opening comment from his post-match press conference after falling 5-1 to Colombia.
Really disappointed, obviously, with the result. We're not framing it as a lesson learned. We're actually framing it as a wake-up call. Really poor performance against a top team. And I think if you give a team like that the opportunities that we gave them, you're going to have no chance to win. It's never going to happen. And, that's what's really disappointing about the game. I think the first half, you look at the 2 goals, maybe they had 2.5 chances in the first half, scored 2 goals, and then, from the 75th minute on, it was, I think, a lack of respect for our opponent, the game of soccer, what we were doing. And, I think the sad thing is it overshadows, how we got back into the game, how we were aggressive, how we had them on their heels, and they were struggling for a moment when it was 2-1, and we weren't able to capitalize on it, and then the game went to pieces late in the match. So, wake up call for us. We expressed that to the group, and we move forward, and we play Brazil on Wednesday.
Well, okay, that's a minute and 10 seconds of Greg Berhalter's first thoughts after the match. I don't think you can disagree with much of what he said. Pretty to the point as well, talking about disrespecting the game and not respecting the opponent. I don't know how you do that against a Colombia side that had won 20 or had been unbeaten in 21 straight matches coming into the friendly. And I'm not. Listen, there are already calls to fire Greg Berhalter. Probably for people didn't want him to be brought back after the last time around.
Yeah.
But it does point to a little bit of leadership question, doesn't it? When you come in and have that kind of a performance, both in terms of the way they played and the way they approached it?
Oh, he does. And it doesn't sound like he threw the team under the bus.
Yet.
Wait
for it.
I don't know that he's that kind of guy that would do that. I think he called out the team with acknowledgement of the team. It felt like one of those, like, hey, we talked about this in the locker room. Everybody accepted it. Mm-hmm. We're going to move on. And so I'm going to go out there and make a public statement on it. Let's move on. It's over and done with. But you're right. Like, how do you disregard or disrespect the team? I will give him a little bit of credit. I think he was right when the U.S. came back in the second half in that game. There was about a 15-minute spell that they just couldn't convert. And I think that's been a little bit of the issue. Like, yeah, we keep all this possession here and there. We can't overpossess. Our players they're not an overpossessed team. Not with Matt Turner. You cannot be an overpossessed team when you have a goalkeeper that is just okay with his feet. He's not bad with his feet. He's not great with his feet. And he tries to do a little bit more than what was able to do. I think the back line is okay. Tim Ream just didn't have a good game, but he's possession-wise. Even Pep Guardiola has mentioned that Tim Ream could play for Man City because he is a very composed center back. And I think you have others there as well. Sergiño Dest, I think, is a big miss. I think there's a big gap between Sergiño Dest and he's not going to be available to Joe Scally. Mm-hmm. The gap between, I know Joe Scally's playing in the Bundesliga. Sergiño Dest just brings a different flavor to the team. He doesn't defend very well, but you can just leave three in the back. It's not a big deal. I think it's how do you overlook a team, like as you mentioned, have 20-plus unbeaten games, going into a game against Brazil, right? And I'm not just saying that because I happen to be from Brazil, but it should be a warm-up game so you can face Brazil at your best, not as a wake-up call. So that's a little bit of, these are professionals, and I know they're young, but how do you disregard a team like that?
Here's the other comment I want to play. Now, I've got one more I'm going to play for you and Becky when Becky Burleigh joins us here after the break. But do you want to listen to this one? This is Berhalter talking about what he basically called a bad approach that the team took against Colombia.
We weren't moving for each other. We had this idea that we were going to dribble out of the back every time. It was multiple players. You can't just point to one player. Multiple players. And, again, not respecting the game of soccer and the opponent in that case. It's a very good opponent, very dangerous opponent. Our whole idea was the space has got to be small. If you make the space big, you're in trouble. And you saw that. As soon as we opened it up, it was lights out.
So he's acknowledging that going against Colombia, one of the most technically savvy clubs in the world, that you can't make it a track meet. You can't try to out-dribble them. You got to play a different style. Maybe you can do that against Bolivia or Panama. We'll find out. But you can't do that against a club like Colombia, and you certainly are not going to be able to do that against Brazil on Wednesday.
No, because they match your athleticism. I think U.S. today is a very athletic team, but Colombia and Brazil, they just have the same athletes, if not even better, with a little bit more of an intensity and disposition to it. So what he mentioned on, you have to make the spaces smaller, it's on both sides of the ball. Your passing choices have to be shorter because if you make them more than 15 to 20 yards, any missed pass, the gap is too big for you to recover. So as he mentioned, we felt like we wanted to dribble out of the back all the time because the options weren't there. And he was true. The options weren't there. So you have center backs that are not primed to be dribblers, which is why they're center backs,
right,
are having to now figure out solutions on their own while dribbling because the distance between their teammates was just too big. And every time Colombia, there were 3 goals vividly that I can remember now that were caused off of our giveaways on our feet. And the option was too far, and Colombia just pried on it. And then you get the likes of Vinicius Jr., Lucas Paquetá, Rodrigo, Martinelli, Rafinha. Now, those guys are replacing that front line from Colombia from a speed standpoint. I do think Colombia is on a better form than Brazil even. They have a bit more hunger and more bite to them. But you give the guys that I just mentioned a chance with that big of space to dribble into, it's going to kill you.
It's not just one James Rodriguez, now there's 4 of them out there you've got to deal with. All right, we're going to take time out. When we come back, Becky Burleigh's going to join us. We want to remind you, you can win a pair of tickets to the Stateside Cup to watch Wolverhampton Wanderers take on West Ham United, the Stateside Cup, July the 27th at Everbank Stadium. Here is your chance to win. Email us at contest@sportingjax.com with your pick of who scores the first goal for the United States against Brazil on Wednesday, making an assumption that one will be scored. If you think nobody will score, send us one that says nobody. First correct answer gets a pair of tickets to the Stateside Cup game between Premier League sides Wolves and West Ham. Again, that's contest at sportingjax.com. All right, we'll take time out. When we come back, Becky Burleigh joins us to talk about what the U.S. women's team is doing, and we're going to play another soundbite from Greg Berhalter and want to get her take on it with her coaching expertise. That's still to come straight ahead. This is the Sporting Jax Soccer Hour on 1010XL.
This is Eli Manning.
The Giants have won the Super Bowl.
Your MVP, ladies and gentlemen, Eli Manning.
On 1010XL Jacksonville Sports Radio.
Are you tired of having a plain and boring backyard? Really want to impress your family and friends this year? Then stop by Stone Core on Phillips Highway. Imagine hosting guests at your new outdoor kitchen, relaxing by your custom-built fireplace under a brand new pergola. Stone Core can also remodel your old pool deck and beautiful new pavers. Make your backyard wishes a reality. Visit Stone Core on Phillips Highway and let's get started at stonecore.co. We do outdoors better.
Imagine driving a late-model Corvette, BMW, Mercedes, Lexus, Honda, Chevy, Ford, and more, all at a fraction of the original sticker price. Visit Vaughn Motor Group's indoor showroom and browse a great selection of dream cars that are inspected with warranties. Before you make your next auto purchase, check out Vaughn Motor Group on San Jose Boulevard or at vaughnmotorgroup.com for a complete inventory listing. If you can dream it, you can drive it at Vaughn Motor Group.
Hey there, this is Jeremy Baker inviting you to Grace Note Brewing. We're a brand new music-themed, family-friendly craft brewery that specializes in offering something for everyone, whether that's the Jam ESB, the Berry-Tone Fruited Sour, or the Enharmonic IPA. We are located at the Sadler Point Marina, underneath the Roosevelt Bridge between Avondale and Ortega. You can even get to us by boat. Come check us out in person and stay tuned through social media at Grace Note Brewing. Cheers, everyone.
At what temperature is Fahrenheit equal to Celsius?
Southern Oak Insurance knows that you want to save money on your homeowner's insurance. So why not try some old-fashioned common sense? Ask your Southern Oak agent about our roof replacement schedule. It will save you money.
Our family protecting yours. Southern Oak Insurance.
At 40 degrees below zero, the temperature is the same in Fahrenheit and Celsius. Why? It takes too long to explain.
Southern Oak Insurance. Our family protecting yours.
Jumbo Shrimp Baseball presented by FIS is home this week at 1-to-1 Financial Ballpark. Wednesday's VyStar Good is Everywhere Wednesday, featuring Project Catholic Charities, and it's Forever Vets Dog Day. The weekend starts with Coors Light Thirsty Thursday, Pride Night, and then fireworks Friday and Saturday. Baseball all weekend. Tickets start at just $5. JackShrimp.com for tickets. Jumbo Shrimp Baseball. Affordable family fun.
Dan Hicken and Jeff Prosser start the week by giving the ball to the best back in Duval.
And off, Fred Taylor.
Monday morning running back with Fred Taylor is fueled by Epstein and Robbins and B&B Fuel and Lubricants on 1010XL.
International soccer returns this summer. Don't miss your chance to see teams from the biggest league in the world in Jacksonville as they compete for their first trophy of the season, the Stateside Cup. Be there when Premier League clubs Wolves and West Ham take the pitch July 27th at Everbank Stadium, home of the Jaguars. With the series trophy on the line, competition will be fierce. Tickets on sale now for as low as $35. Buy your tickets today at StatesideCup.com.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville, it's 60 minutes of soccer. The Sporting Jax Soccer Hour on 1010XL AM.
Well, some of the crowd are on the pitch.
We welcome you back to the Sporting Jax Soccer Hour. Cole Pepper, Mauricio Ruiz. Here each and every Monday night at 6 o'clock on 1010 a.m. And if you miss it, you can always get it in the on-demand section at 1010xl.com. Follow us at social media at sporting_Jax, and we'll make sure to share that as well when it's out and ready for you. We will have conversations about all manner of soccer here on this show here in our second week. And, of course, always great to bring in Becky Burleigh, the architect of the Florida Gators soccer program, national championship winner, and somebody who I really value from understanding the big picture and how a coach can impact individuals on a team. Becky, good evening to you. Doing well.
Hey, Becky.
I'm going to play this soundbite from Greg Berhalter, and I'm going to acknowledge right away that playing a 10-second soundbite from a 20-minute press conference takes it out of context a little bit, but I do want to get your take on what is said here. So here's what one of the things that Greg Berhalter said that I felt was pretty damning language from the U.S. head coach after the 5-1 loss to Colombia.
It's a collective thing, and the reason why I'm so disappointed is because guys just didn't do their job. It's about your role, your responsibility, and we didn't do that.
So obviously a frustrated moment for Greg Berhalter. Becky, as a coach, I'm sure you've had a time or two where you've been disappointed with the performance of the team. When I heard him say we didn't do our jobs, that jumped out at me quite a bit. That was telling.
Well, you're right. I first of all agree with you that 10 seconds of a 20-minute press conference is a tough place to make any kind of specific judgments. But what I would say is, when you're coming to sit down with the media after a loss like that, and clearly it's a loss that's not going to sit well with your fan base or with you personally. I'm sure they were not happy with their performance in that match. I think the first thing that I try to think of is what does the team need from me in this moment? Because whatever I say, they're going to hear. And in some ways, it's a way to message to your team through the media. And so, maybe he felt like they needed to hear that. Maybe he felt like that was frustration on his part. I can't really predict where he was coming from with that. But that, to me, would be the first thing I'd think about, particularly when you're a little bit heightened going into a press conference after a loss like that.
Becky, if they hadn't gotten beat by so bad, I think there would have been this undertone message. If the result was 3-1, or as he mentioned on a previous take here, at 2-1, we really feel like we're putting pressure on Colombia, and then the 75th minute, the kind of game got out of hand. You typically at that point, you would have heard a coach say, yeah, we did some good things. We just couldn't convert. I mean, at 5-1, you can't backtrack that. At 5-1, you just have to own it and you have to assume it that, yeah, you didn't do your job. But assuming that there was a different job to be done and we just didn't complete it on the day, because it makes it easier if that was the plan going into that game. That's a pretty bad plan. So there's a side of it of just saying that was not the plan. We didn't do our job. And 5-1 reveals all of that.
Yeah, and I would also add to that and think, of course, there's going to, you're going to feel pain from a result like that, right? You're going to feel like whether the team, whether you're the coach, you're going to feel pain from that. And I think as long as you're able to take what you need to from that, literally look at it like a scientist, not like an emotional person, take what you need to from that, and then be able to turn the page and move on. That's when you have a good team and you have a good staff. And I think we'll find that out in terms of their ability to take what they need to and move on, because we have to play again. And so there is no rest in this situation for them, and they face arguably a tougher opponent. Maybe that's arguably at this point, maybe. But I do think, the best teams and the best individual players and the best coaches find a way to take what they need to take from it, turn the page, and grow from it.
Yeah, now they go against again, FIFA World Rankings are not always exactly to the money, but, go from a 12th ranked team to the 5th ranked team in the world. Colombia's been red hot, as we mentioned earlier. But when you play Brazil, it's never going to be easy. The United States has only beaten Brazil once in the history of men's soccer in this country. And I'm not sure that the outcome of the game against Brazil is as important for how the United States will play in Copa America, but it might be as important a game, a friendly as you're going to find for Greg Berhalter, who, to get out there and at least put in a good performance. Again, if it's 3-2, 2-1, whatever that is, and you lose, if you give Brazil, a handful, that's going to be huge for Greg Berhalter in terms of his handling of this team going forward, looking ahead to the 2026 World Cup.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I think every coach, you always evaluate your process as you go through the games that you have, and I think he's no different. I mean, I think Greg has a good process, and it's now about, can we either, one, adjust the process because what we has as the process is not working, or two, can we stick to the process despite the fact that there were some things that came out of it that were negative, because I think everyone who's ever experienced soccer has been in games where it feels like a bit of a shocker, and maybe that was not really indicative of the game. But also everybody's been on the other side of that too, where you've come out with a result that wasn't really indicative of the game. So how can you make sure that you're really focused on what your process is and that process is a strong one?
All right, let's shift for a moment to talk about the women's national team. Certainly not the level of competition you talk about facing, a top 12 team in the country in the world rankings. Then you have, the United States women's team with Emma Hayes coming in as the new head coach, facing South Korea in a couple of friendlies, dominating performances, 4-0, 3-0. I think what everybody's talking about right now, though, is Lily Johannes, the 16-year-old who came in, looked cool as a cucumber, made a couple of terrific passes, found her way on the pitch, and then scored a goal in her first international cap for the United States. What a moment. And to see the look on her face and the way her teammates responded to her, well, that was a great moment.
That was so fun to watch. And, it's just fun to watch a player that has grown up in a different system, because you just feel like this vibe about her, like this composure. And that's not to say that American players don't have that composure too, but it feels a little different. And it'll be very interesting to see how that continues to evolve, because clearly she's got the skills to take her game to even the next level. I mean, she's a 16-year-old. Like, that's insane. So just to see her be able to, scan the field, make decisions, have composure, I mean, all of that at that age is so impressive.
So I saw a lot of what you're mentioning, her just overall composure and just really looking like a pro and an adult in that environment. How much, however, do you feel like it's a bit of a strategy for the U.S. women's national program, which they really haven't had to deal with in the past with dual citizen players? And it happens a lot on the men's side that you want to cap them early, you want to give them an opportunity to come into camp early, in order to showcase what they could be in this environment. Obviously, women's national team here are at the top of the pyramid of where you would want to play if you have dual citizenship. But Netherlands right now are pretty attractive too. And if she lives there, plays for the local club, how much do you think this has taken into equation in capping her, or is it just raw talent? Should she be part of the Olympic team? Is that something new that the U.S. will start having to think about in inviting foreigner-based players into our national team?
Well, I think we'd all be naive to think there isn't some kind of politics involved of when you cap a player, how you cap a player, all of that. I think there's part of it to where it's you're right, the Netherlands is a great option. I mean, the country has been really, really good about developing players on both the men's and the women's side. The women's team is a treat to watch. They're one of my favorite teams to watch in world events. So she has two great options, and I think the question will come down to, where does she fit? How does she progress? All those things. I mean, I can't imagine it's an easy decision for Emma Hayes, but I also can't imagine it's an easy decision for Lily to make that decision to decide where she's going to go one way or the other going forward.
This kind of feels partly like the conversation we were having about Real Madrid, and, they win the Champions League, and they sign Mbappe, then they've got this 17-year-old Brazilian wonderkind. In some regards, from a talent standpoint, if Lily Johannes chooses to stay as a United States international, the rich get richer. It's great for us who are rooting for the United States. Yeah. Everything's all right. Becky, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again next week.
That sounds great.
Thanks Becky.
Guys.
Becky Burleigh joining us each and every week here on the Sporting JAX Soccer Hour. She also joins us every week on the Sporting JAX Report that airs on TV on ABC 25 Wednesdays at noon, with an encore presentation Saturdays on ABC 25 at noon, and also on WJXX.2, which is Comcast 201. You can also find it on demand at First Coast News Plus and at SportingJax.com's YouTube page. So a lot of opportunities for you to continue to stay connected with what's happening with Sporting JAX. And a reminder, you can reserve your seat with Sporting JAX by placing your season ticket deposits now at SportingJax.com. $25 reserves your season ticket for the men's or women's team, and $40 reserves spots for both seasons. Just go to SportingJax.com now to reserve your spots for the inaugural seasons. When we come back, we talk a little more about the international game and focus on some local youth players playing at a very high level in our area. Florida Elite's team is at the top of the USLW rankings. More to come on the Sporting Jack Soccer Hour right after this.
Where electrifying moments come to life.
Inside of a minute to play.
And legendary performances live.
A monumental milestone in a legendary career.
1010XL. The power of Jacksonville Sports Radio.
Hey there, this is Jeremy Baker inviting you to Grace Note Brewing. We're a brand new music-themed, family-friendly craft brewery that specializes in offering something for everyone, whether that's the Jam ESB, the Berry Tone Fruited Sour, or the Enharmonic IPA. We are located at the Sadler Point Marina, underneath the Roosevelt Bridge between Avondale and Ortega. You can even get to us by boat. Come check us out in person and stay tuned through social media at Grace Note Brewing. Cheers, everyone.
Kick it here with Zero Res. If you're like me, you like to sit on the sofa and recliners and watch a good game or show. You know, unwind down from the day. But sometimes TV time means food, drink, and a mess as well. That's why you need to have the Zero Res truck out and get that furniture looking great again. All of June, Zero Res offering 25% off all upholstery cleaning, 25% off a sectional, off a sofa, 25% off a love seat, 25% off your favorite recliner. Zero Res, man. You spell it forwards, you spell it backwards. Zero Res. It's the right way to clean.
Frank Frangie here for Stanley Pools. You know, pool design has come a long way, and if your pool is outdated, Stanley Pools specializes in bringing older pools up to date for the whole family to enjoy. That's why I did it a few years ago, and man, I love the way my pool looks now after we added travertine pavers and so much else. Stanley Pools has been serving our community since 1988, so call them today at 269-7277 or find them online at StanleyPoolsFL.com. That's Stanley Pools, a family tradition of fine swimming pools.
Hey folks, Rick Ballou here for John's Auto. They've been a staple in Jacksonville going all the way back to 1985. At John's Auto, they service all makes, all models, cars, trucks, diesel, you name it, they do it. Whether it's routine maintenance or a complete engine overhaul. Call John's Auto on Arlington Road. That's 904-743-3857 or go to johnsautomotivejax.com.
Greetings from Jacksonville, the flip side of Florida. Here, you'll find flip-flops and cowboy boots, sushi and soul food, surfers and skaters, Mozart and monster trucks, beachgoers and townies. Find art galleries and city murals, funky neighborhoods, and historic districts. Spend the day on the river or at the beach, in the park or on the trail, at the game or on the green. On the flip side, anything is possible, except running out of things to do. Learn more at visitjacksonville.com.
This date in sports history is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists.
On June 10, 1981, Philadelphia Phillies Pete Rose ties Stan Musial's National League record of 3,630 hits.
1010XL is presented by Farah & Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. It's the Sporting Jack Soccer Hour on 1010XL AM.
Welcome back to Sporting Jack Soccer Hour. Cole Pemper, Mauricio Ruiz. A reminder, you can win a pair of tickets to see the Stateside Cup. Wolves versus West Ham, July the 27th at Everbank Stadium. Email us with your pick for who scores the first goal for the United States against Brazil on Wednesday. Email address is contest@sportingjacks.com. Who do you have here, by the way? Who's your pick for the first U.S. goal against Brazil? Or are you going clean sheet for Brazil?
No, I want to see an entertaining game.
Yeah, you're going down, so you want to see something good.
I want to see something fun. I think Balogun has to kind of, he didn't have a great, year in the Liga, in the French league, and he hasn't really done everything he's expected to do for the U.S., but he has it in him. You can tell he's that type of player, and maybe he just lights it up, and he has got a couple goals, and the game ends up 3-2 for Brazil.
All right, you're taking your pick there. I'm going to go with Christian Pulisic. I think. As a player of his stature and his position, and I don't mean on the field, but I mean within the U.S. soccer realm, after the kind of performance that the U.S. showed against Colombia, this is the kind of game where he's got to step up and say, listen, we're making something happen. So that could mean creating opportunities, certainly can mean scoring goals. So I'm going to go with Pulisic as my pick.
I do think we'll see an inspired group. I don't think that's going to be enough for a result, but like you said, performance-based, I think the fans will appreciate a team that's going to come out inspired with a good performance.
All right, let's hear. We mentioned earlier that there's an undefeated soccer team here in town, Florida Elite in the USLW League. This is a team of college players, college-age players who are playing in the summertime, and Florida Elite has been just running through the competition. 13-0, 5-0, 8-0. One of the top teams in the league, Tampa Bay United, 3-0, and scored 2 in the first 6 minutes of the match. And I went down to check out some of their training. There's a great mix of local and international players there, including Georgia Brown, who's the center back team captain. She's from Oxford in England and has been one of the stalwarts here and is unbelievable on corner kicks coming forward. She is a big, strong athlete. And I asked her about, she also plays her college soccer at USF and has played internationally. So I asked her to talk about the level of competition that Florida Elite sees on a week-in, week-out basis.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this summer experience at Florida Elite because it's a very high intensity. I feel like it pushes me not only in summer, but it makes me ready for fall when I go back. I think the standard of coaching, the standard of players is pushing me every day to be better, and that's what I'm looking for in my summer.
And she's certainly been able to show what she can do. There's no doubt about that. I mentioned she's from Oxford, but her father is Scottish, so she's represented Scotland in international play.
Yeah, I mean, I got the opportunity to play against Spain and Belgium and teams like that, which are high-caliber players, and really that just helps me to aspire. You're playing against the best players at your age, and I think that helps you look at what the other players are like from different countries, the different styles, and that's really helped push me, and you just give me the desire to keep getting better.
What a great experience for a young player to be able to play at that level.
Yeah, when you see a player play, you can tell that they're operating, not just physically, 'cause that's the easy thing to see, but they're just operating on a decision-making timetable that's just different than everybody else. And that's when you watch Georgia play. She has all the physical and technical attributes. She's actually a pretty impressive athlete to watch out there with her size and her mobility and then what she does on the ball. But her thought process is just faster, and I think it's a lot attributed to the fact that she's had some good international experience playing against the Spains and Englands of the world.
And I asked her about what her goals were for the rest of this summer before she goes back to play at USF.
For the rest of the season, in the summer, I hope to just keep pushing on. We've gone undefeated. We don't want to become complacent. We want to keep pushing towards that. We want to win the conference, the league, whatever they call it. And yeah, we just want to keep getting better. And so when we'll go back to our colleges in the fall, we're ready to compete at the highest level.
And I mentioned that this is not just international players who were brought here. There are a lot of local players who were playing, including Grace Ivy, who was on those Great Bartram Trail teams, and now playing her college soccer at Texas A&M. But she keeps coming back and playing at Florida Elite in the summertime. And she was so excited when I talked to her about the future of what's happening with Sporting JAX to think about, for the first time ever, the opportunity exists for local soccer players to play for their team representing their city.
As a Jacksonville girl, to know that there's going to be a professional women's team in Jacksonville. There's never been a pro women's team of any sport in Jacksonville before. But with Sporting JAX bringing the club here, what does that mean to you?
I mean, it's huge. There's never been a professional club in this area, and even just finding high-level soccer in this area for women especially, it's difficult. So I think that having a pro team here is really just going to change the game completely for women. And you already see the young kids in this club especially. They come out and they watch our games. They're asking for autographs, and they come to all the meet and greets. And I think it's just going to be so inspiring for kids, because I know especially for me, I've always wanted to play professionally, and there's no pro team around here. So I think if I had that when I was younger, I would have loved it.
Well, I mean, I just love her. That's the second time I heard her soundbite. I'm just impressed of the maturity and just awareness and really just her interpretation of what's happening right around her as it's happening, because it's not like it's going to happen, it's happening right now. So for her to have the viewpoint of she's from here, there's going to be an opportunity going forward, and she's currently living in a team that is representing the city really well, that she grew a club that she grew up in, and to her point, every young kid that plays at a high level wants to play professionally. And on the boys' side, you actually have those dreams because you can see it, right? You see it on TV. You can travel, whether it's in your local town or somewhere pretty nearby. And in the U.S., that's just growing. On the women's side, that's never really that represented. And just the wealth of the movement that's happening now on the women's sports in general, and soccer certainly not taking the back seat to that. And to have that in your local city, as just you mentioned, a high-level team and a professional team that her and her younger siblings and friends can see them realistically playing for that team. Whether it happens or not, someone from the city of Jacksonville that has grown up and been raised and developed here will play for the local team. That's something that's never happened before, certainly not on the women's side.
Yeah, and the impact that, and I've said this a number of times, I mean, it's certainly possible. We'll see what happens that the men's team could draw more. We'll certainly have more games in terms of the league schedule, it appears right now. But I don't think anybody's going to have a bigger impact than having a pro women's team in town. This the ripple effect and the long-term impact that's going to have on our city is going to be pretty spectacular. And again, having seen the reactions of young women, girls when they see professionals of the U.S. women's team in town, that sort of thing. Now that's at the highest level, obviously, but to have a first division professional women's team coming to Jacksonville, I think is going to be just enormous. Want to remind you to join us as well, if you are not already. Subscribe to our podcast, The Sporting Pod. Mauricio, Tony Allegretti, and I kick it around every week. You can find The Sporting Pod wherever you find your finer podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or on the Sporting Jacks YouTube channel. All right. As Austin Powers once encountered, sometimes you have to find the freaky deaky Dutch to come up with something interesting and different. The Dutch proposed rule changes in soccer. And there are basically 5 big ones that they have proposed. And I want to get your perspective on how this would change the sport of soccer if these were implemented, whether just in the Dutch league or more broadly. First, kick-ins instead of throw-ins.
I don't think that will fly. Well, okay, maybe you're asking if it were to happen.
Yeah.
How would it happen?
Yeah.
They would have to also put some kind of offside rule, kind of how hockey has, where you can kick the ball forward after a certain distance. It just wouldn't fly because otherwise it would be too direct of a game. You already see long throw-ins, and it's kind of what it is. It's a shot. It's a set piece straight into the box. If you give a kick in from half field, you're just going to see more balls dumped into the box. It's going to complicate the game. It's going to make the game less attractive, in my opinion.
But probably would lead to more scoring, you think?
You would. I think what's going to happen. You see now the end of the games where balls kind of get dumped into the box more. I think that's just going to happen earlier, and it's going to create more of a chaos. I think it's kind of like watching a car wreck. That's why people slow down on the side of the road, because there's a certain level of entertainment. I'm saying in the positive way.
That's the battle royal in the box. There.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to look like. It's going to look like a car crash, every single weekend.
All right. Time penalties. In other words, the sin bin, a blue card, something along those lines, where it's not necessarily to the extent of a red card and you're out, but where you might have to sit for 5 or 10 minutes or what have you if you commit a certain number or intensity of infractions.
I like it. Yeah, I kind of like that. I think the game, the casual foul takes away from the game. And if players know that they're going to get that blue card and you're going to have to play down for a certain amount of minutes, it will change your decision-making. So I think that will speed up the game because you're going to see more flow, less fouls, because players don't want to sit out.
All right. Self-pass on free kicks.
Not a fan. I think it's one of those things that's not broken.
Yeah, who doesn't like a good free kick, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's a broken thing. I think what they're thinking about is when it's a free kick in your deep end and you have to make a pass out, just touch it to yourself and kind of play on. Mm-hmm. It's not really a broken thing. I never really heard that argument. I would love to hear what is the reasoning behind that, because it's not something I've ever even heard as an issue.
All right, flying substitutions. In other words, you don't have to wait for the fourth referee to put up the sub. Guys come on and come off. At will.
I think there's a substitution rule that can be improved. I don't think flying substitution is that. I can see the appeal to it. Yeah, and you can see like in the TST tournament, the 7v7 indoor game hockey, that does happen. I I don't think it's I do think it could be improved. I don't think it's broken, but sometimes you do have players that are waiting for a really long time to sub in, and you see the referee kind of, fumbling with the meter thing, the numbers that go up. I don't think flying. I think that's a really big solution. I think there's probably somewhere in the middle there.
All right. Finally, and this might be my favorite of all of these, net playing time. Instead of 90 minutes and then stoppage time and worrying about how much time had been wasted, 60 minutes of play, start and stop the clock, much like most American sports that are on the clock.
Ironically, I don't think you would change the time of consumption of the entertainment because that's about you're actually playing more. Right? I think the players may have an issue with it to a certain extent because right now they're only running around for about 35 to 45 minutes of actual running time. But also that's the entertainment time because it's reduced. I like that rule because I think it keeps up with making the game more modern and updated with the technology that we have. So I think that's something that I would like to see happen.
All right, interesting. We'll follow, see if the Dutch implement some of these for the upcoming season.